Unit 4, Item Analysis. 4.1 Introduction. In the previous unit, you learned about different statistical techniques of interpreting test scores. In this unit, you are going to learn about the techniques for analyzing responses to test items so as to determine their validity and reliability. You will also learn about the advantages and techniques of test item banking. Learning outcomes. Upon completion of this unit, you should be able to analyze test items using statistical methods, define item difficulty and discrimination indices, compute item difficulty and discrimination indices, analyze the effectiveness of distractors for multiple choice items, improve item qualities through response analysis, select items for different purposes, establishing test item bank for future use. 4.2 Analyzing test items. Once a teacher has corrected and marked his or her students' test papers, what do you think he should do with them? Should he or she throw them away, keep them, or what? Item analysis is an important phase in the construction of tests. It is the process involved in examining or analyzing testees' responses to each item on a test with the basic intent of judging the quality of item. Item analysis helps to determine the adequacy of the items within a test as well as the adequacy of the test itself. There are several reasons for analyzing questions and tests that students have completed and that have already been graded. Some of the reasons that have been cited include the following. 1. Identify content that has not been adequately covered and should be retaught. 2. Provide feedback to students. 3. Determine if any items need to be revised in the event they are to be used again or become part of an item file or bank. 4. Identify items that may not have functioned as they were intended. 5. Direct the teacher's attention to individual student weaknesses. The results of an item analysis provide information about the difficulty of the items and the ability of the items to discriminate between better and poorer students. If an item is too easy, too difficult, failing to show a difference between skilled and unskilled examiners, or even scored incorrectly, an item analysis will reveal it. The two most common statistics reported in an item analysis are the item difficulty and the item discrimination. An additional analysis that is often reported is the Distractor Analysis. Once the item analysis information is available, an item review is often conducted. In the following sections you are going to learn the statistical techniques used to analyze responses to test items. 4.2.1 Item Difficulty Level Index. How difficulty do you think a test should be? How do we determine the difficulty level of test items? Why is it important to know the difficulty level of test items? Please think over these questions and share your ideas to your friend. Item Difficulty Index is one of the most useful and most frequently reported item analysis statistics. It is a measure of the proportion of examiners who answered the item correctly. For this reason it is frequently called the p-value. If scores from all students in a group are included, the difficulty index is simply the total percent correct. When there is a sufficient number of scores available, i.e., 100 or more difficulty indexes are calculated using scores from the top and bottom 27% of the group. Item analysis procedures. 1. Rank the papers in order from the highest to the lowest score. 2. Select 1/3 of the papers with the highest total score, and another 1/3 of the papers with lowest total scores. 3. For each test item, tabulate the number of students in the upper and lower groups who selected each option. 4. Compute the difficulty of each item % of students who got the right item. The difficulty indexes can range between 0.0 and 1.0 and are usually expressed as a percentage. A higher value indicates that a greater proportion of examinees responded to the item correctly, and it was thus an easier item. The average difficulty of a test is the average of the individual item difficulties. For maximum discrimination among students, an average difficulty of 0.60 is ideal. For example, if 243 students answered item number 1 correctly, and 9 students answered incorrectly, the difficulty level of the item would be 243/252 or 0.96. 4.2.2 Item Discrimination Index. To what extent do you think a test item should discriminate between higher achievers and lower achievers? Should it be highly discriminating, averagely discriminating, or less discriminating? What are your reasons? The index of discrimination is a numerical indicator that enables us to determine whether the question discriminates appropriately between lower scoring and higher scoring students. When students who earn high scores are compared with those who earn low scores, we would expect to find more students in the high-scoring group answering a question correctly than students from the low-scoring group. In the case of very difficult items which no one in either group answered correctly, or fairly easy questions which even the students in the low group answered correctly, the numbers of correct answers might be equal for the two groups. What we would not expect to find is a case in which the low-scoring students answered correctly more frequently than students in the high group. For a small group of students, an index of discrimination for an item that exceeds 0.20 is considered satisfactory. For larger groups, the index should be higher, because more difference between groups would be expected. The guidelines for an acceptable level of discrimination depend upon item difficulty. For very easy or very difficult items, low discrimination levels would be expected. Most students, regardless of ability, would get the item correct or incorrect as the case may be. For items with a difficulty level of about 70%, the discrimination should be at least 0.30. When an item is discriminating negatively, overall the most knowledgeable examinees are getting the item wrong, and the least knowledgeable examinees are getting the item right. A negative discrimination index may indicate that the item is measuring something other than what the rest of the test is measuring. More often, it is a sign that the item has been miskeyed. 4.2.3 Effectiveness of distractors in multiple-choice items. One important element in the quality of a multiple-choice item is the quality of the item's distractors. However, Neither the item difficulty nor the item discrimination index considers the performance of the incorrect response options, or distractors. A distractor analysis evaluates the effectiveness of the distractors in each item by comparing the number of students in the upper and lower groups who selected each incorrect alternative. A good distractor will attract more students from the lower group than the upper group. Just as the key or correct response option must be definitively correct, the distractors must be clearly incorrect or clearly not the best option. In addition to being clearly incorrect, the distractors must also be plausible. That is, the distractors should seem likely or reasonable to an examinee who is not sufficiently knowledgeable in the content area. If a distractor appears so unlikely that almost no examinee will select it, it is not contributing to the performance of the item. In fact, the presence of one or more plausible distractors in a multiple-choice item can make the item artificially far easier than it ought to be. 4.2.4 Distractor Analysis. Building a file of effective test items and assessment tasks involves recording the items or tasks, adding information from analysis of students' responses, and filing the records by both the content area and the objective that the item or task measures. Thus, items and tasks are recorded on records as they are constructed. Information form analysis of students' responses is added after the items and tasks have been used, and then the effective items and tasks are deposited in the file. In a few years, it is possible to start using some of the items and tasks from the file and supplement these with new items and tasks. As the file grows, it becomes possible to select the majority of the items and tasks from the file for any given test or assessment without repeating them frequently. Such a file is especially valuable in areas of complex achievement, when the construction of test items and assessment tasks is difficult and time-consuming. When enough high-quality items and tasks have been assembled, the burden of preparing tests and assessments is considerably lightened. Computer item banking makes tasks even easier. Summary: in this unit you learned how to judge the quality of classroom test by carrying out item analysis, which is the process of testing the item to ascertain specifically whether the item is functioning properly in measuring what the entire test is measuring. You also learned about the process of item analysis and how to compute item difficulty, item discriminating power, and evaluating the effectiveness of distractors. You have learned that item difficulty indicates the percentage of testees who get the item right. Item discriminating power is an index which indicates how well an item is able to distinguish between the high achievers and low achievers given what the test is measuring. And the distraction power of a distractor is its ability to differentiate between those who do not know and those who know what the item is measuring. Finally, you learned that after conducting item analysis, items may still be usable after modest changes are made to improve their performance on future exams. Thus, good test items should be kept in test item banks, and in this unit you were given highlights on how to build a test item file/item bank. Self-check exercises. 1. What is the purpose of test item analysis? 2. What is item difficulty index? 3. What is the power of item discrimination? 4. What is the basic intent of distractor analysis? 5. What information should be included with the test item we put in our item bank?